Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guy here. It's a name that's been calling around with people, players from the community. I met him a couple of times, and he's a guy that helped a lot of good players from in the community in the pro, semi-pro. He would distinguish it however he wants. Some people say it's semi-pro, some people say it's pro. But in his rich background now, we'll see the difference whether it's pro or not. He would be able to let us know. He's the ideal person to let us know if that was pro or semi-pro. So without further ado, I want to introduce this gentleman, and maybe he can tell us his background in the sport and when he came to Canada. All right, so I ask you to introduce yourself.
My name is Mark Konert. I was born and raised in Holland, and at the age of, I think, 21, 22 years old in 1984, I moved to Canada. I was very briefly associated with the blizzard, but at that year, when I came in from Holland, that was the last year the blizzard was around. It folded, unfortunately, at that time. The whole North American Soccer League folded. And but my career started in Holland. Uh, Through my youth, I was finally, how do you call it? Somebody found me, and they selected me to come to AZ Alkmaar, which was a professional team in the highest division in Holland. I stayed there for a few years. As I said, I went then to Canada. I was going to go back to my team, AZ Alkmaar, but for whatever reason I stayed. And then unfortunately the blizzard folded, and I continued playing around here in the area, in the Toronto, St Catharines area. And that's how I started to meet a lot of the guys like John Williams. And
Okay. Before you meet Johnny, I want the public. When were you found? Because we also doing it for the benefit of the young people who are aspiring to be footballers, soccer players, professional. When were you recruited in Holland? At what age you were discovered and taken to that team?
I was 17 years old when I was recruited. Um, in Holland, you have all types of different amateur levels. It's a little bit different in Canada. And I was fortunate enough to play on the highest level at 17 years old. And that's where usually guys of a young age get selected or get chosen by teams like Ajax or AZ or Feyenoord. And AZ was that time interested in me and signed me. So that's how it started.
How was that experience for you? I just again for the young people, the work ethics, the training. How did it at 17? How did you find that?
Well, soccer is very different, I think, in Canada. It is a little bit more on a professional level. The advantage in Canada, everything is close. So if you want to go to the soccer field and train, you only go 5-10 minutes on a bicycle, and then you're on the practice field. So your opportunity to train is a lot better than in Canada. We used to train even when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, 5-6 hours a day, because there was nothing else to do. There was no computers at the time. And all you would do is you go get together and train. And then when obviously a professional team signs you, then it becomes really serious, and then they develop more structure to your game, right? You get technically better. They fine tune your passing or your strength, what you're good at, and that's when they hope to get you to a point where you really could or start making an impact for that team. But that growth and development, that's what I try to introduce much later on when I started to create my team with the guys I thought had a chance to make it in Europe, and to try to train them in a specific way, the way I was used to, so that I thought they could really maximize their potential and had a chance to make it in Europe. And that's what happened for a few guys. They really improved their game, and some of them did very well.
So your name is associated with St Catharines Roma, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So how you got into the St. Catharines, and at what stage did you start bringing in the Johnny Williams and the MacGyver Brooms and stuff? How was that whole bringing that franchise together? I guess you took it over from someone? How was that whole situation with that franchise?
Now, it started when the Blizzard folded. I really had, obviously I still loved soccer and I really didn't know really what to do. So then the Blizzard even thought maybe the year later they would restart, and that was only if. So I was living at that time closer to St Catharines than to Toronto, and St Catharines at the time had still a little bit of money. They could still play, and you mentioned before, talk about pro, semi-pro. St Catharines at the time still were paying the players a certain amount of money, so you can consider it semi-pro, and they asked me to play for them. And but before that started, I started to play some indoor tournaments because people, I guess they knew me by name, and they asked me to play for them. And that's when I played against Johnny's team in the final of indoor, and I guess I scored a lot of goals on them. So I started to get interested in who I was, and then I realized that Johnny and some of the other guys were very good players too. So we started to get together and form a really great indoor team, which lasted for many years. This, Thomas Radinsky became part of it.
At the shooters?
Who? Yeah. So we had a lot of good players who played on a decent level. And some of the guys who came out of the youth, like Thomas Radinsky, he became part of our team. Then I took him to St Catharines, and then I also took him to Holland. And then he created his pro career. So a lot of these guys, I thought were all probably, I thought also there was a little bit of misconception with the Canadian program and the way I saw soccer. I thought the Canadian program was more, I thought, more English-based and English-style soccer. Well, I thought that a lot of the Caribbean guys were more talented. They were quick, they were good with the ball. And, they were, for whatever reason, not giving the proper opportunity. So I was picking and choosing a lot of these guys, and it benefited me greatly.
So I understand you made trips to them also to Holland.
Yes.
Were those trips showcasing, or was it a sort of reward for the season when they played for you?
No, it was really a showcase. I mean, I was never in it for the money, but I had, because of AZ, I had a lot of good contacts. And in the beginning, the Dutch teams were a little bit unsure. So they said, Mark, you know what? Because we used to play always for their open day, which means that their team, like any pro team in Holland, they introduce their new team because, at the end of the season, some players go, some new players come. So then they go into a training camp, and then they get ready for the new season. Now, once they come out of the training camp, they play some exhibition games, and then usually the last game is the open day. And the open day is usually they present their number one team. This is their best 11, and they want to show their crowd how good they are. So in the first year when I went, I had trouble getting teams because they said, oh, it's this Canadian team. Oh, we're going to beat them 10-0. So I said, I'm not so sure about that because I think these guys are pretty good. And so they said, okay, the first year, go to the Coca-Cola tournament and showcase that team. So we end up winning that tournament. So we played pro teams that were their second team, not their first team. But because we won that Coca-Cola tournament, that next year, every team in Holland wanted us to play them. Because we were playing them for free. Their stadium was full with people, and they got all the revenue. And for us, it was great. All the guys got exposed to the whole professional world in Holland. So,
what was the Caribbean name? Can you give me some of the names of the Caribbean players that won that first time? Because I know the Ricky Titus, some of these guys went with you.
Yeah, I had Thomas Radinsky. We had Martin Dugas, who played in Holland for 1 year, and then he got, I think, injured on his knee. He played, then he went to Edmonton. We had Ricky Titus, we had Ricky Trotman 1 year, and unfortunately of his passing later on. We had Paul Moore. We had Chris Hanser. He tried out also in Holland. He ended up not making it, but I thought it was also, a very good midfielder. I think Carter came one time with us, Peter Santopoulos, who played for the Canadian team many years. So we had every year was a little different, but we had a lot of, I think, a lot of good players on the team.
And if I may, how did your team do was that the CSL or CNSL at the time? How did that team do?
We won it every year. We won the cup every year, I think 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row after, as long as I think I was with the team, because I quit or I stopped, but I was just getting a little bit too much for me in 1995. But yeah, we more or less won every year, everything we could win here. And then, before we went to Holland, we trained really in the springtime, in the early summertime before we left to Holland, 3 times a day. So the guys were very fit. And, I think it showcased because we played, for example, also Sparta Rotterdam. We played in their stadium and they were 4th of Holland that year. So you can imagine, this was not a bad team. They had actually 2 or 3 guys in the national team. And we tied them 2-2, I think. 2-2, or we beat them 2-1. So,
wow.
So we were very competitive. The guys played excellent. I tell you, I was very proud of them those years. Trained very hard. They were sometimes complaining because they puked a few times too up.
Well, I hear it was a tough mixture of drinks and training.
We went out. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. You can't be serious all the time. So. Here and there we went out and we enjoyed each other's company. I think that's how you create a team. All the guys were very close, and I think the guys, I don't see them as much, unfortunately, anymore. But when I speak to Johnny or MacGyver, they still talk about those years that we were, playing together and really of a good time they had. And that's important. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and now that you reached that part, I want to ask you now for the community to hear. You kind of touched on it early on with the style of play.
Yeah.
What is your, seeing that you had this full experience of different type of players, what was your whole, that's a lot of Caribbean players you had. Yeah. And obviously, the way the world is now, what is your niche? What you found it very comfortable to interact culturally with the Caribbean players or the Black players or however you want to term them? Because obviously, and that's why I sought you out, because you were very open. You received them and you also tried for them. Obviously, you paid them and you were one of the better paying teams and you kept them together. So you didn't have a fear of having a bunch of Caribbean guys or Black guys together. How you relate to that? What is your feeling about that?
I've only good things to say. I think, we had a mixture, obviously, of the Caribbean players with the white players. They all, were very close together. What I always appreciated. Because to me, I was, still fairly close to their age, that they respected me for coaching them as hard as they, I thought, needed to be. I think I was always fair to everyone. I was not just because one player is the superstar of the team, I treated them different than somebody else. We still talk about the story. And I don't know if I can tell you the story, but it always stood out in the team for many, many years. Johnny Williams was my closest friend, right? And he was a great player. But at that last year in Holland, he was getting also, he was a tad older, but still fantastic player. And I was planning to start him, but for whatever reason, I actually more for technical purposes, or tactically purposes, I didn't start him. And in the 40th minute, one guy got a headbutt from this Dutch opponent and had a big gouge in his head. And I needed Johnny to be ready to warm up. But Johnny was taking pictures of the crowd because he loved the crowd and seeing all these people watching the game. He was so impressed. He was taking pictures of the crowd. He said, Johnny, what are you doing? You got to get ready, get in. So he got in, he got 2-3 balls, and one pass was worse than the other. And on halftime, I said, I have to make one change. So he played literally 5 minutes. and I took him out. So he was my closest friend. And they still talk about that today. I said, when you come in, you need to be ready. So I think what happened those days, what the guys enjoyed is that we were all on the same level. You know, everybody was the same. And you know, just because I'm maybe closer to this person didn't mean I treated them differently. So I think that's what the guys appreciated.
You're my kind of coach. You're my kind. I can relate to that. Yeah, that says a lot about you and your character, though. And how was that whole trip?
It was absolutely a lot of fun. You know, thank God all the guys were very serious. They wanted to do well. So you need that too. You know, everybody really wanted to play well, train well. So, and they wanted to showcase themselves. So, you know, I never had problems with discipline or anything, you know. As a matter of fact, sometimes the only thing what I always feel bad about is for some of the guys, I thought a lot of the guys had the talent to make it in Europe. Why? Because, you know, to me, you know, I played the game many, many years. If you have a first quick step, if you're quick, if you're fast, but you have a first quick step, you can always get open. And that makes the game so much easier. And I always thought a lot of the Caribbean players had an amazing first step, the ones who played for me. And I'm sure there's, you know, many more over the years who came along. And you know, a lot of them were good with the ball. You know, maybe they could have added some, you know, in Holland, I used to train on a lot of moves to go by people. You know, you don't see that as much here in Canada. And but those things are trainable. And I think a lot of the Caribbean players could have gone very far. But when you're in Canada, you're a little bit locked up in this surrounding. And it's very hard. You know, also the soccer fields are not up to par. I find a lot of the soccer fields are not flat, or the grass is too high. So if you want to learn to play good soccer, the grass needs to be low so you can pass properly. You can, you know, you can go by a guy properly, and those things were missing in Canada. So
yeah, I understand that even with friendly games, coaches in Europe, they specify the height of the grass. They want the type of stadium they want to play in. I understand that at that level, they do be specific about the height of the grass.
And then you can show how good you are. Really, that's really, you can show how good you are. If everything is proper, then you can see if somebody can pass properly, or can go by somebody, or you know, it's a major difference. I've seen AC Milan coming here a few times, and they couldn't play here either. You know, they look like amateurs compared to when they play in Italy, right? It's only normal. You need the proper fields to play on. So
Mark, are you out the game now, or that's it?
Yeah, I've been out of it since '95, so it's already quite a few years. I kept, you know,
you look like you're still in shape. I saw you play as a matter of fact, because as you said, you mentioned earlier about the age, and that's why I give you a thumbs up, because when I met you, I didn't realize you would have been that young either too. And then I saw you play, and I realized, yeah, you know, I don't know what stage of your career that was by the time I saw you, but you were looking good. It was in the indoor.
Yeah.
Right? And the way you were possessing and positioning and you know, knowing the situation, what's around you, you can see that you played at a certain level. You know, you have no interest in it anyway, support any team?
I would have, you know, again, I wanted to do more, and that wasn't there. You know, I felt like this is as far as I could take it, because the field, I never had the proper facilities to really work with. I wanted better soccer fields. If I really wanted to get young guys to really make it and get to where I wanted them to get, then things had to be different in Canada. And unfortunately, it never seemed to be happening. You know, it was always stuck in playing on the same fields, and if you wanted to play in a decent field, it's artificial grass, but that's not the same as playing on grass. You know, even in Holland today, there's a few pro teams who try to play artificial. It's totally hated, and now they're asking those teams to go back to regular grass. It changes the soccer game. So if it would have been different, I would have loved to continue, but it just wasn't the case. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's serious about, you know, in other words, if you don't have it doesn't add up, it can't work.
Yeah, that's more or less. If you again the right structure is if you, because obviously it needs money too. You need a lot of. I mean, I think today there's some more important soccer. You know, they do soccer clinics or whatever in Canada. That was not in my day. I think they took that later on in somewhere in the 90s, and they became much bigger at it. And they sometimes invite coaches from Europe to coach. I mean, that's already a big step forward. But still, I think I've been to the hangar in the back. You had the Toronto facility, the pro facility.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think of TFC?
Yeah, that's already a big improvement. But those type of fields, you need many of them, right? Because that's how you get little kids to start playing better and learn the game. And you can't play them when grass is 4 feet tall. And
but it's more reason for you to get involved and show them or tell them the way you tried, and because I guess you were in because you had a franchise. And were you the owner of that franchise? The owner?
I'm not officially the owner, but you know, I had a lot of sponsors who supported me, and the club, St Catharines, also gave me. It was a fairly rich club. They gave me quite a bit of money, and then also, it cost me a little bit out of my own pocket too in those days. So, but all in all, we had a decent budget for I think it was over at that time over $100,000. So at least you could work with it, right? You can make sure that the guys, it's not a lot, but you could make sure you give them a little bit so they, and when we were in Holland, I would give them some money because, they deserve it. They work hard. It's they also take time sometimes after work to do all this stuff. So they need it, right? So that's how it was done.
Yeah. So we're gonna be missing you. So any last thing you want? What are you making out with COVID and stuff?
With COVID?
Yeah.
It's I find Canada, compared to I see the United States, everybody is getting their 2 vaccinations and everybody's getting back to normal life. I think we're living in a crazy country, right? And
yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised about that. I'm really surprised with Canada on that because I always thought we were ahead of the game when it comes to things like that.
So now people don't play any sports. So that's, I think, very detrimental for the health of the kids. There's nothing for them to do. It's terrible. So I think it's vital that they get back and get this country going again, and let the kids be out there.
Okay, now you mentioned the word kids and stuff. You have any kids?
Yes, I do. I have 3 right here. I have 5 in total, but 3 of my current marriage.
Any ball player?
I have actually, a 16-year-old boy. He's actually pretty good, but his schooling is, it's very difficult for him to get time because his school is still 7:30 at night every night. He goes to a Jewish school and he's very busy. So, by the time he comes home, eats homework, and then there's really no time for practice. My life was very different, growing up. I was home at 2:00, 2:30, and then the rest of the day I was playing soccer. So that's, it's, and also kids today, computers. So it's more difficult for the kids to be as willing and as being excited about soccer as I think, the guys were 15, 20, 30 years ago.
So you're saying he doesn't play? Does he play? Does he have potential?
He plays for fun, but I think he has a lot of talent, but it will never come out because he just doesn't have the time to train. That's really what it comes down to.
Oh boy, that's hard for you.
Yeah. So what can we do?
That doesn't sound good. A son with talent, and you're from Holland, and you know all the ropes, and but at that age, you say.
But I really think if you really want to be good in the game, you really have to start at 6, 7 years old, and I think really between the age of 7 to 14, this is really your most important years. This is where you learn. After that, you can maybe get a little bit better, but if you don't learn that in those 7 years, that's the easy. That's where you get good. That's
Is
where
that European requirement? Is that what you recommended for any Canadian youth like to go into Europe?
Yeah, that's why in Europe that Ajax, they take these boys at 7 years old and they have schooling for them at their facility, and then every day, so many hours a day, they train. So they really train specific, and develop them accordingly. And that's the only way to because those first 7 years are everything for a boy. You can't learn that anymore after. You cannot teach a 15-year-old to go buy a player if he was not able to do it before that. Or if you have to pass a 50-yard, 40-yard pass, and you can't teach, they can't learn that anymore at 15. You can learn it when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, but not anymore when you're 15, 16. That's, you only get a little bit stronger, you get bigger, you refine your game. But all the nitty gritty, what makes you good, it's all in the first 7 years.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear from you. Yeah, because that will be for the young people. As coming from somebody like you who've been in that market, that's perfect to hear you say that, coming straight from you. So Mark, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Thank you on behalf of the guys that you took to Holland, and they seem to really kind of adore everything that you stood for. And you stay safe.
Thank you so much.
All right. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak to you. And it was nice to see you again.
Yeah. All right. You remember me, right?
Yeah, I do.
All right. You take care.
Yes.